Hey there, everyone. Jason here. I'm going to double check that we are live like it says we are. I know the one time I don't check is the one time we won't be live, and you all miss out on an amazing show that I will do just with me and the guests in our own private room. Looks like we are indeed there, so we are good to go. Awesome. So, hey there. I'm Jason Logston, and this is Exploring Sous Vide. We're all about helping you get the most out of your sous vide machine while talking to some of the biggest names in the industry, especially today. So welcome to this special edition of Exploring Sous Vide. We're going to be talking all about International Sous Vide Day. We'll still have our regular show on Thursday, so be sure to join us later this week. We're going to talk to Chef David Petranczyk, always a favorite here at Exploring Sous Vide. We're going to be talking about the probe capabilities of the Hydro Pro Plus circulator. They have so many adjectives on the end of it because it's just that good of a machine, but I can never keep them all straight when I'm trying to introduce it. So tune in on Thursday. You can ask some questions, talk to the other cooks in the comments, and even see our smiling faces. So if you're joining us live, be sure to say hi in the comments today and pass along any questions that I can ask our guests, because it should be a really good show. We got Darren Wilson joining us. How's it going, Darren? Michael Shardy's joining us. Nice to see both of you normally here, so I appreciate it. So, on to the show. Sous vide is not just French. It's an international cooking technique, and it's used by chefs and home cooks around the world. So what better way to celebrate this diversity than hosting an International Sous Vide Day? And today's guests are two members of the amazing team putting it all together. So please welcome Chef AJ Schaller from Crea and Chef Gerard Bertholon from Cuisine Solutions. Chefs, welcome to Exploring Sous Vide.
Hi, Jason.
Hello, Jason. Thank you for having us.
I appreciate you coming on. It's a very high-powered lineup. I think this is, AJ set the bar by herself before, but now having the two of you on is just raising that lot going on. We've got a few people in the comments. We got my mom joining us saying, hey, from Philly. She moderates the comments, make sure Darren and Kevin stay in line and don't misbehave over there. So I can't wait to dive into International Sous Vide Day. But Gerard, last time you were on, we just did an announcement show. So you avoided my normal starting question, which I'd love to ask everybody. So before we dive in, what is it like around your dinner table on a typical day?
Well, it's really what there is in the fridge. Now with the long hours, my wife just called me now and said, what do we do tonight? I'm like, I don't know, just order in. I don't have time to cook. But with the holidays, it was a little bit more time where I did some foie gras au torchon sous vide. I know AJ did one in her story. Also, she used a technique that we used 2 years ago together when we cooked our foie gras. So it's really sometimes some of the food that I have to test, because we test so many things at work. So I bring some home because I'll be 500 pounds if I test all the food we have to do between when we have guests coming to visit our plant or see us. So we have to have lunch, and we say capability presentation. We have a 13-course lunch. People leave Cuisine Solution between Crea and Cuisine Solution completely stuffed, and usually they have little goodie bag to take with them too. So we that's one thing, people they never leave hungry. And like I said, a lot of time I have to take some home because I have to test some product from R&D and new concept and so forth. And we have over 30 chefs between Crea and Cuisine Solution. So every time somebody say, hey chef, can you test that? Can you test that? So a lot of testing to do. So I'm sure you will hate this job, Jason.
Yeah, I've been there 2 or 3 times now, and I have definitely never left the building hungry or anything less than completely stuffed. It's you all put on quite a good culinary show whenever guests come in, which is always great. AJ, did you do anything, cook anything interesting for the holidays?
Yeah, so like Gerard was saying, actually, we were on the same foie gras order together. And actually, it's funny enough, you mentioned you're having Dave on soon. I used the new Hydro Pro Plus with the probe to do that recipe, so that was fun. And yeah, we went to a like the Airbnb cabin and just brought a bunch of stuff, holiday type food. There was risotto, there was seafood, there was soft scramble, things like that. Quick little getaway. So.
And just on one thing we just did, we opened on January 7. We opened what we call a dark kitchen. We talk about dark kitchen ghost. It's dark for dark assembled kitchen. So we opened that in New York, in partnership with Pret à Manger. So we have 5 different concepts. So we had to test before we left for the holidays all those dishes that we were training and redoing and calculate the timing from the reheating, because many things we did in a turbo chef and has to be pretty simple things. So if you go to csdac.com, you can see of all the product we've been launching in New York, and hopefully next is going to be Philadelphia and Washington. So it was a lot of product to test.
I expect a tour of the dark kitchen once tours become a thing that can happen again. Since I'm in New York, I'd love to see your operation and what you have going on there. And Darren says you can ship him any of the leftover product you have. He'll be happy to polish it off at his house.
The only problem, the product are so good, there is no leftover.
Nice. Got a few more people tuning in. We got Ron Miller saying hi. We got Harvey Farrington from Australia tuning in. Nice to see the international audience always joining us. We have a heavy Australia presence.
So one thing from our Australian friend, we have something really big in common with Australia. Do you know what it is? The 26th of January is International Sous Vide Day, but it's also Australian Day.
Ah.
So it's very important. We have our friend from Aussie Lamb and Beef. We've been planning some product. I don't know, you should join. We're going to be doing with them, we're going to be part of their thing. The biggest dinner around the world is going to be part of the Guinness Book.
Yeah.
MLA, in Meat and Live, you should join. And they're trying to break a record on Australian Day, the evening of International Sous Vide Day. So that's
awesome.
That should be a fun event. Everybody has to cook a Australian beef or lamb or goat or whatever you have available. AJ and I will be doing some beef and sing from home. And also they'll be judging the best presentation, and there will be some prize for the best presentation. And we know our friends from Australia are very generous. So I will say, everybody make some sous vide beef or lamb from Australia, and who knows, you might get a present.
Very cool. Mark Webb just joined us, another Australian. Where can they sign up to be a part of this big Australian dinner? Is that just at internationalsousvideday.com, or is there a better link that they can go?
With the MLA, I can, if you visit the Aussie Beef and Lamb, we can send you the connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe it's true Aussie Beef and Lamb, and they're hoping to get 500 participants, which would be a world record or over that.
Very cool.
So
yeah, it sounds like something good to be about. I'll be sure to let Dale Prince know too. He's with Sous Vide Australia, and he's going to be part of the panel we're helping put together for the International Sous Vide Day. So I'll make sure that he shares that with some of his followers and the people that he trains. Mark Webb says he's doing a full lamb leg sous vide for Australia Day, so he's excited about his lamb already.
So he has to make sure he send a picture to the Aussie Lamb and Beef, and it'd be a fun dinner and competition at the same time. Friendly competition.
Mike just dropped the link into the comments, so people can follow it there, the trueausiebeefandlamb.com. So International Sous Vide Day. I want to dive into that. That's one of the big reasons we're having you on here. Coming up on the 26th of January. Can you tell us a little bit about what is International Sous Vide Day and why it's on the 26th? Besides Australian Day, of course, to help celebrate with that.
AJ, I will let you start.
Sure. So International Sous Vide Day is the annual holiday that is also a celebration of scientist Bruno Guglielmo's birthday. So all around the world, it's being celebrated in many different countries, Middle East, France. We would have, it will be the first one that we're doing virtual, as is many other things this year, but the entire day is completely full of events between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. There's panels, we've got some contests, we've got a cooking demos from chefs all over the world, including Thailand. So we want to invite everybody to join and join the, if you go to internationalsousvide.com, you can register and participate in all of the great events that we have lined up.
And everybody should register because we have some giveaway. I think we gave an immersion circulator last week. We gave, sorry for our friend from Australia, but it's only for the US. Everybody can register, but the gift is only from the US. And we have some cocktail, since AJ is going to be doing a cocktail demo during International Sous Vide Day. We have smoker. We have a lot of different things to win before we start. Talking about those presentations, we know nobody's going to spend 6 to 7 hours on their computer on International Sous Vide Day. So all those demonstration, education course, conversation with top chef and top leaders will be online for 60 days. So hopefully you'll join to one of the scheduled day of International Sous Vide Day, and then you have at your leisure the time to view or review. We already taped most of it. I was part of the Daniel Boulou and Kyle Connaughton and Grace Ramirez. Two of those chefs have 3-star Michelin, and we trained both of them. Kyle worked at Fat Doc in London, we trained the whole team, and Daniel Boulou many times. We had this chef not too long ago who came to Crea for their cryo concentration sous vide. So we've been having a really good relationship with most of those chefs since we train more than 45 3-star chefs around the world. And then we'll have some industry, Brad Nelson from Marriott, Mark Erler from Hilton, the VP of Culinary. We have Olivier Gopin with the VP Culinary for Benchmark. We have, talking about those 4 chefs, we have the French chef. Those 4 chefs will be doing not Daniel, but the 4 chefs, one in Dubai, one in France, one in Thailand, and one in America. They'll be doing a 30 minutes cooking on sous vide. So they create some dish. So the French chef has a star Michelin restaurant. We have this young lady from New Orleans who has 3 restaurants, who won some Food Network and a lot of other things. We have the chef in Dubai who cook in the highest restaurant in the world, since he cook at the Burj Al Arab, the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. And then we have Ian Kitachai, who is part of the 50 best restaurant in Asia, who's been a kind of an ambassador in Asia for us. For sous vide, is a big supporter of sous vide.
Oh, so
and many more things.
It's amazing how much you've been able to line up, especially, going virtual probably gives you a little bit more leeway to have a few more people do stuff that people around the world can enjoy, instead of just having, the 4 to 6 big parties that, you have to go to DC to be a part of. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah. The opportunity this year is for a lot of home cooks to join. Usually it's mainly we invite people who are in the business or, more on a larger scale, depending if it's an airline, food service, or any other thing. But this year they will be, I'm very glad a lot of people are at home can join and learn from those chefs and leader in the industry. We will also have the CEO from Panera, who's going to bring what sous vide bring to a really large corporation like they do. We've been working with them for 10 years. We'll have, everybody knows John Taffer. He has the show Bar Rescue. And of course, AJ has been developing all the restaurant meals with him. We opened about 2 months ago in Atlanta. And he'll be talking about the challenges what goes in the industry on labor, and in his mind he already started to work on what was the restaurant of the future even before COVID. So it's really interesting to listen to what he has to do. And also a gentleman called Dan Rowe, who has a company called France Smart. He takes some good concept and really interesting concept, and he feel what's going to work in the world, not just in America. He was the one who took Five Guys. Everybody knows Five Guys. Well, he took Five Guys when they had 10 or 15 restaurants and franchised them, all over. So he has a lot of great concept, and he will be talking about what make a success of going from a few location or something where a chef is very emotionally attached to his concept and his food, and really making it feasible for franchisee to duplicate that, because we know a chef cannot be everywhere in 20 restaurants or 500 restaurants. So it's a lot of good things to learn from him too.
Nice. Yeah. Trying to let go of your baby, kind of. If you want it to grow beyond you, you have to kind of give up some control over it. You've both been involved in a lot of different international sous vide days. AJ, what's your best memory or most vivid experience from International Sous Vide Day in the past?
I mean, all of them have been amazing. I was in Washington, D.C. last year at the Conrad Hotel for the last celebration, and just the amount of, networking and people that we were able to host. And we did some auctioning. Carla Hall was one of the MCs. That was really fun. Crya did a couple of cocktails with cryo concentration. So that was really fun because a lot of the guests hadn't seen it before, because it is a new technique that that we've been training and developing for a few years. And I have to say, probably one of my favorite things was we had 3 leaders from Daniel Boulud's group there, the corporate chef. His chef at DBGB at the time did a station, and also their director of operations. And, I've known all of them for over 10 years from working there before. So it was just nice, it's nice to see your family a little bit. But it was just amazing. We really got the word out. We had guests that we work with at equipment companies and, of course, International Sous Vide Association, and all the great connections that we made. So every time we collaborate, Jason, I think that we just expand even more and more. And when Gerard was mentioning this year, because it is virtual, it is much more inclusive, and it just keeps getting bigger. And the resources are there for you after. So that's going to be pretty cool. So you might not be able to taste everything, but you can certainly participate in a lot of different ways.
I will miss not being able to drink the cocktails that you make, because those are always a great time every year.
Well, Gerard, drink something. We'll encourage you to, keep yourself, from being thirsty during the events. Well, no
if you insist, I will make a drink for myself at home. I will do that just for you, AJ. Otherwise, I would never want to drink at home. But Gerard, what's a good memory that stood out to you over the years?
Well, more than just a memories for me, it's of course, it's Cuisine Solution Crea. We have created this International Sous Vide Day. We are the main sponsor to do it, but it's not about Cuisine Solution or Crea. It's really about the celebration of a technique where it's people can cook their own sous vide. This exchange is everybody who's passionate about the technique, who are all together in one day and celebrating this technique and exchanging ideas, see some friends that you see rarely because everybody's so busy. It's really a time to be together. So last year, of course, I was at the Conrad with you guys, but the year before I was at Syrah in Lyon for Bocuse d'Or, and we did that. It started on Saturday, where everybody was arriving. We had so many chefs. We had about 200 people, close to 200 people, and I would say 80% were chefs from different regions. A lot of chefs from America who came to support the American team. but from France, from Spain, from everywhere. And is again, for us, usually when we do event, is about to promote our product. And here is only about promoting sous vide and celebrating sous vide. So this time, everybody can relax, everybody can have a drink, everybody has good food. In Lyon, we had to prepare, our team had to prepare everything, but last year was fun. We had very little to prepare. We said, hey, guess what? Why don't we invite the chef and ask them to do any kind of dish, whatever they want, and for the celebration. So it was a lot of fun for us because we had more time to enjoy it, and to see what it's always good when people start to cook sous vide, and either they come to Crea or whatever, they start on their own, and you see them over the year really becoming better and better at cooking it, at tasting some new thing, and then chef exchanging thing. Oh, have you cooked abalone? Have you cooked something like that? Or I mean, it's this community who really work together and have fun together because they have the same passion.
Can I add on to that really quick? You made me remember, like, one of my favorite parts from last year too, is that whole cycle of chefs that are in our network or have learned from us or taken the training. Chef Todd Gray from Equinox at a station, and he had just recently, a few months before, taken our extraction and cryoconcentration course. And of course, Equinox is an institution in DC. It's a really, really amazing restaurant, and they're still doing takeout food and limited seating right now. But he did a lot of sous vide elements in his dish, but also carrot cryoconcentration. So we're like, oh, that's great. It's in practice, and meals that they make at the restaurant too. They focus on helping to combat food waste as well. So it all tied together.
I do remember that carrot soup. Mike just commented on that in the comments as well, that when you're surrounded by all this amazing food, and then some things like that, like the carrot cryo concentrated soup was just so vivid and interesting, and like something you can never have anywhere else. I love trying all the food that everyone has. And it's always fun going to those events because, like you said, there's people from all walks of the sous vide world, and it's really intimidating that everyone you talk to is just more accomplished than the last person you talk to. They are all doing, working at great restaurants, running hotel chains, just some really high-powered people out there, and they're all super nice, and you have a good time having drinks and having some great food together, which is going to miss that aspect, but I'm looking forward to be able to relax a little bit more and learn throughout the day. So it should be really exciting.
Definitely.
So I know Daniel Ballard is involved. What is he going to be doing as part of International Sous Vide Day this year?
Well, we asked Kyle and Daniel to not only talk about sous vide and about what they were using sous vide, or how they were using sous vide before, and how sous vide helped them during the COVID, where they were limited in having staff in the kitchen. You cannot, it is known when you have so many people in the kitchen, we work almost shoulder to shoulders. You cannot bring the same amount of chef in the kitchen for their safety primary. And so using more sous vide, bringing people ahead to prep the food, and have the other one finishing the meals, how sous vide was bringing solution during this time. Daniel was also, we asked them, not because of COVID, not just to talk about sous vide, but what they did also for the community, all their support. Daniel is very involved with Meals on Wheels, and also with he was feeding 1,000 to 2,000 meals every day to a hospital, to the worker, doctor, nurse, and everybody. And we work with him, and he's used some of our product because they couldn't do the restaurant, do the meals, do all of that. They had too many things, and they had to look for some solutions. And some of the product they were cooking themselves, but some product, when you have a 2,000 meal, their use is to cook what? To cook 150 guests an evening, and they have 20 people just prepping in the morning, and they're closed at lunch, and they have another 25 at dinner, and to do 150 customers. And now for the same chef, because the goal for Daniel was to keep his employees having a job and revenues, to keep as much as he could. It was not a question of making money, but it was like, I want to support my team. They've been with me for so long. I want to make sure I'm there to support as many as I can. And whatever concept I can take, I can bring more and more people in. That was very big for him. For Kyle, of course, we trained him when he was in with the whole team at Aston Blumenthal, but we did some follow-up as we had working with him in a different project in the US. For a while, he was consultant with Chipotle. He was consultant with different things. But for him, he was, he's been supporting the meals for all the fires. So they create, I forgot the name of their charities, Sonoma Fire something. So for him, it was, finding some solution using some of the product to feed so many people who were in distress and because they lost their house or they were somewhere else. And it was not just for him feeding them. He talked about nurturing their soul. He's not just giving them a ham sandwich or just a simple thing just to what I call a belly filler, but it was something like they could feel behind the food he served them and bring them, that it was some people really caring about bringing something really delicious. It was not just about feeding them. So everybody had some different story to talk about it, of course, of sous vide, but also of all the difficulty they have been going through. So we asked some of the guests to talk about how COVID affects them during this time.
That's great. The ability to give back and expand their operations during this time to, contribute to people that need it. How do they work in your product when they try to ramp up or expand like that?
AJ, if you can answer this one, it was cracking for me. I didn't understand the question.
Using product to expand production, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So whether you're using prepared sous vide from somebody like Cuisine Solution or preparing it yourself, batch cooking for restaurants, sous vide has really saved the day for a lot of people during COVID. Whether they're preparing to do a lot of charity meals or just building up on stock because they've had an increase in to-go orders. So when you have the ability to cook sous vide and chill properly in store and all of that, you're really reducing labor and not relying so much on skilled labor, which is very helpful. Cooking everything from scratch and concepts that we have, such as DAF or Taffer's Tavern, or for a restaurant or a hotel, if you have a lot of to-go orders or room service that's picked up as a result of the pandemic, if you have the products already cooked sous vide, say you've got a pork belly that's been cooked for 36 hours, pick up time the equipment that you'd use is always exactly the same. So even though you're preparing in advance, as long as you dial in your pickup and your recipes for service, it's pretty foolproof. You can use less equipment, you can have less labor. It really helps out a lot. And also, people are concerned with food safety in general, more so than they were before. But if you have that as part of your systems, you got very minimal touching on the food, which people are also concerned about, because the product is in the pouch before it's cooked, and then it's fully cooked and chilled and held in the same pouch. So it's completely pasteurized, and there's no chance of any recontamination, and super safe.
Awesome. Darren says that Kevin Liddell says hi. He's currently in Facebook jail and can't comment on the chat. But
hi, Kevin. I was trying to say hi to you, so that's why I dropped off for a second. But I'm not smart enough on how to figure this out.
I think Gerard switched.
Yeah, I switched because my phone was cracking. And I didn't hear anything about what AJ was saying, so I went back to my computer, even though the quality is not as good.
We're
She did
being
a masterful. She did a great job explaining how to ramp up with product. There is nothing that could be improved upon it, Gerard, and you should be very proud of her
Oh,
presentation.
I know. I have no doubt about that. She does a much better job explaining what we do, for sure.
I have to say, just really quickly, it's so awesome to see people participating that have been to Cuisine Solutions and CREA as guests, or at International Sous Vide Association summits, or International Sous Vide Day, or taking a course. Like it's really nice to, share and kind of, stay in touch, especially with everything a little bit slower right now with travel. So.
It's good because every time we see people who've been to, International Sous Vide. Today I was at a conference call with Mara Fourni, and the gentleman said, Gerard, we met at the International Sous Vide Association. I was there and we talked. I'm like, okay, I'm getting old. I don't remember, but it's like, yeah, we're trying to do a workshop with rating our product in the pizza oven at a higher temperature to bring more caramelization. And we're going to be doing workshop, but he's like, yeah, I'm a big fan of sous vide, and I went to, I follow International Sous Vide Association and so forth. So it's a community is growing and growing for sure.
It's great. It's been wonderful working with CREA and Cuisine Solutions, and having you a part of it just expand all of our worlds. It's nice to see some of our attendees and stuff, interact and take your workshops. And, I talked to so many people that are like, oh yeah, I ended up doing the CREA workshop, and it's great. The exchange of knowledge, and just kind of, it's fun working with people that are passionate about a subject and are very, very knowledgeable about it. So we appreciate all that you've done for our organization as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's we started a long time ago where we were not doing it as we were. I don't know if you want to say paranoid or what something, but at one point, some people were starting to do it, and we decided to say we really need to expand the class and so forth, because if somebody does the wrong things, it's going to hurt all of us, not just us at Cuisine Solution and CREA. Because you have some temperature to respect, you have some certain step on chilling and so forth to do it, and you cannot just learn from online, and because there is some good and bad information. So that's why we decided to do a class on online and also live, and really expanding it and really focusing more on it. We wanted to make sure that everybody will be cooking sous vide the right way and mainly safely. That was a big point on our part to push for that, to share our knowledge.
Yeah, because no one would remember the hundreds and hundreds of restaurants that are using it properly. They would remember the one restaurant that didn't have the knowledge and ended up in the New York Times or something.
And they will say, it's not Joe something who screwed up. They'll say sous vide is dangerous.
Yep.
And so we really didn't want that to happen. So that's why we've been, all over the world teaching and sharing some of the knowledge.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that too, some of our guests have taken the HACCP course with us as well. So not just to be safe at home, but for professionals too, depending on where you live, the local or municipal health departments are just catching on, realizing that sous vide's a process with reduced oxygen. So there's different kinds of safety concerns. And versus what people do at home a lot of times is they cook sous vide and then they sear and then eat right away. Whereas in restaurants, you would do batch cooking and chill and store it. So there's even an increased steps that you need to take to make sure the food is safe. So our HACCP courses and consulting, we've seen a really big increase in inquiries about that because, different jurisdictions are starting to catch on. New York, of course, it's been over 10 years since they've been enforcing it. But when we get contacted by people from, Sunrise County, Florida, they've never heard of it before. So that's important as well.
I feel like it's extra important with the sealing. Like you said, it's a technique that's not used in a lot of other types of cooking necessarily. And with sous vide, the sealing's pretty much a critical part of it. And during the class, you talk about some things that were counterintuitive, that if you take raw product and you seal it, you're not extending the shelf life unless you cook it. You need to just putting it in a oxygen deprived environment is not going to extend shelf life if you just keep it in the fridge. And that was like one of those takeaways for me, that I would have just assumed that was the case because you sealed it, but saying like, no, you need to cook it, and you're probably shortening shelf life if you don't cook it right away.
Yeah, that's definitely a common misunderstanding. The pouches that are meant for cooking in are non-permeable. So you're just keeping a raw product in, an environment where it can't get oxygen, versus like in a grocery store, if you have packaged meat, that's a little different. When it's raw, that's modified atmosphere, and that's safe. So to even know the difference between the two is important.
Yeah, the anaerobic bacteria still grows. So that's a big no. In Europe, it's illegal to do that for the restaurant to do it. Some of the people in meat industry can do it at slaughterhouse, like they do in Australia and so forth. But it's illegal for somebody in France to buy some meat, portion it, and vacuum pack it for the restaurant.
It's fascinating to me, the differences between like what you do at home and what professional restaurants do, and like it's 80% the same, but that last 20% can make a big difference from safety and from preservation and just quality perspectives. It's really fascinating for me as a random schmo who cooks at home to go through the CREA course and really learn about what restaurants do, and kind of the more advanced techniques that go into it. It was eye-opening in a lot of ways, and in other ways I was like, okay, good, I have been doing it in this manner as well. So at least I was on the right page, even if I didn't quite understand all the chemistry and biology behind the need for different temperatures. But it's fun seeing all the different things that go into it.
Yeah, we're happy to have you, because you have such a great network and can kind of transmit that to the people that have your books or check out Amazing Food Made Easy, like all of that good stuff. It's important, not just for professionals, but just enthusiasts as well. And for sure, during the pandemic, the amount of people that are cooking sous vide at home has just skyrocketed, because we're all working from home. Maybe not every single day, but it's just really important to share what we know with each other.
Darren says in the Facebook groups, we try to teach the home cooks a proper way. And you'd be surprised how many people totally mess up a cook and blame sous vide instead of blaming themselves and their bad technique, which is very, very true. It's always the technique's fault, not the person that doesn't know what they're doing and just winging it. So part of International Sous Vide Day, you're doing this Global Palates series, which sounds fascinating to me. You have cooks from all over the world. They're going to be sharing some of their favorite recipes. Which are you excited to kind of see?
Well, one thing I would like to talk about it, and we completely forgot to mention it. We will have a 50 minutes documentary on Bruno Bousseau. So we send a crew to follow him around in France at the lab and going to restaurant, doing that, almost like the series Chef's Table. Nice. We're not pretentious to say it was as good, but and I didn't see the final version yet. But it's going to be interesting to listen to Bruno about when he started sous vide and all the people that we interview, where he goes everywhere, and it's about a 50 minutes documentary, and I think that's going to be
50 minutes because it's the 50th anniversary. Is that why you did 50 minutes?
Well, I don't know if it's 50 or 51 minutes, but yes, it's the 50th anniversary since 1971, where Bruno started to do his research on sous vide. So it's a really a big event and big celebration, and in one way, I don't want to say it's better to do it virtually, but in one way it's better because we're going to have so many people who are going to be able to join and learn more during this 50th anniversary. I had some people said, well, it's great, you're going to save money because you're doing virtually. But because we went and set up all of that and send crew to tape those chefs cooking in Paris, in Dubai, and doing these 50 minutes, it's going to be more costly than a regular International Sous Vide Day this year.
If you ever need to send anyone else to Dubai to follow him around the lab, just let me know. I'd be happy to do that.
Maybe next time we'll do one in the US.
That's all right. You can fly me overseas. I don't mind at all. In 6 months or so. But
Yeah, when we are all vaccinated. Yeah, the chef, they're all cooking something differently, different culture. People are looking at, it's really different. When you go to France, nobody's doing heavy searing like in America. They want the product very little seasoning. They want to, so it's part of even myself, sometimes I have argument with Bruno, where he barely put that in salamander. And I said, well, it's not seared. He said, no, we don't sear it. It's going to cover the taste of the fish. And I've been in America for so long. I want some consistency, some crispiness, some texture. I'm looking at something completely different. So when you go to all those regions, when you go to Asia, when you go to Dubai or you go to France, you see the people treating the sous vide, the technique differently depending of their culture, whatever they are coming from and what they expect from it. It's so sometime I remember when I start presenting some sous vide, people used to tell me, "Oh, but Gerard, you put in a bag and everybody tastes the same thing." I'm like, it's really not completely different. You saw that during the class when we do low, high, low, and different step by step. We can create so many textures, so many cooking points. It's so much more complex and so much more flexible for the chef to bring their own creativity than putting a salmon in a pan and doing maybe fully cook or half cook, and that's it. How many different cooking points you can put when you cook it in a pan compared to how many different texture, color, everything, and fusion that you can bring to your fish or your meat, and something if you add some aromat or something like that is so much more complex and is so much more precise. And you can see that depending of where the chef are from. I'm sure it's the same thing for home cook, but really, the way you growing up, even in cooking point. I mean, I grew up with eating the bleu, the meat was barely hot at the center. And, you go to different part, maybe South America is a little bit more well done. Depending which country you're looking at, people are braising more, depending. And all of those techniques are suited to be duplicated in the sous vide techniques and much more precise.
Have you found techniques that one like culture or cuisine really likes and figured out how to apply it in kind of a unique way to a different type of cuisine to kind of fit it into it?
Well, the way I don't know how to answer this one, but everybody's looking at it different way. You go to India and you talk to Indian chef, and for them it's about cleanliness. They love the cleanliness system where it's in pouch, is not contaminated, is concentrated. When we work with Thomas Keller, it was more about precision. For him, I work in his kitchen at French Laundry, and everybody respect the step from A to Z, and you have none of his chef who's going to change. Like you go to kitchens like, chef didn't know, I changed that. For him, it's about precision. So it was how can bring consistency. When I work with Mark Miller, it was all about enhancing the flavor. And we kind of discovered something with him, when we cook pork, and he said, your pork has no flavor. It tastes like, because, with Bruno, we wanted juicy, we wanted low temperature. It's like, I don't taste the pork. And we spent 3 days in the kitchen with him and Jonathan Beno, the chef who opened at Percé, before we opened Percé. And Mark Miller said, I want to cook at a higher temperature. And we cook one low temperature and one higher temperature. And the flavor of the pork came out so much, and he didn't care about losing some moisture, because for Mark is mainly first is flavor. The consistency is important, the juiciness is important, but for him, his goal is to get the most flavor out of the product. About the seasoning, about if you look at his Southwestern books, he had, I think, 13 or 14 books. Everything is looking for flavor. How can I bring more flavor to my dish? And for him, was sous vide was a concentration of sealing all the flavor in it, and whatever we put in it. That's why now he became such a big believer in sous vide. It was to enhance, and Daniel was more about, hey, I have all these old recipe where I have to braise item for a long time, and if you change 10, 20 degrees, and okay, the short rib might be dry or might be too tough, or might be, and when you put that and you put 50 pounds in a braising skillet, it's depending from one chef, somebody passed by, turned something. It was really for him about those old dishes, those really long, coolie, succulent flavor. It was more interesting about duplicating some of the those deeply rooted French dishes. It was not about cooking a fish à la minute or something like that. It was more about those those old classical. And AJ can talk more about it since she worked with Daniel for 11 years.
We did short ribs every other day, probably in a steam kettle in the basement at Danielle. And it's interesting. I was just thinking, Gerard, when you were talking about that, and we'll have to discuss it more because I wasn't with Crea when we developed the recipes with Danielle Sous Vide. But I do know that he always reduced the red wine before adding it to the braising liquid. So the short ribs and red wine and sous vide, you would always reduce the alcohol so you don't have that raw flavor when you're cooking with it. So it's very familiar ideas, I think.
I know Stefan Boer from Stefan's Gourmet does. He's from in the Netherlands, but he's like a huge Italian, loves Italian food and goes over there all the time. And he makes a lot of traditional Italian dishes, but like ragouts and stews. And he'll sear off the meat. He'll make the sauce, reduce it down so it's about the consistency he wants. Then he chills it, bags it all together, and then he'll sous vide it for the 48 hours to tenderize the meat or whatever the longer sous vide time is. And so he approaches it in that way so that you have those really good traditional almost Italian sauces, but you get the benefits of having the meat cooked exactly how you want it cooked and perfectly cooked every time.
Yeah, everybody has a different the question, do you want to sear the meat of the stew before or after? Not after or not sear it at all. I mean, both have, you get a different texture. You put, if you put the beef just raw inside the meat and cook it this way, you have different way where you can cook the beef by itself. So like that, you have no acidity, nothing draining or drying the product, then reopening the bag, taking the juice, making the juice, then mix it back together. For me, that's the best result, but it's the most difficult one to do because you have a lot of handle to sing, but in production, people like to put everything together and then do a pasteurization because a stew, you cannot have a steak and a sauce on the side. And then certain dishes, you have to cook it together because you want the marinade to go out. So I think there is no right way or wrong way to do it. It's really about what you like personally. It's almost like sometimes I go to a dinner and you say, "Oh, Gerard, you're a French chef. You choose the wine." I'm like, I don't know what you like. Do you like white wine? Do you like a Pinot? You like something more robust, like a Bordeaux or a Cabernet? Everybody and nobody's wrong. Somebody just started, they want lighter wine, and it's fine. So every answer is right, and the food is the same thing. It's like, oh, you don't supposed to do it like that. Well, as long as it's safe, as long as you reach the right temperature, the meat is tender and something, there is no wrong or right reason. The wrong reason, the wrong way is only when you cook under 52 Celsius. And I know a lot of people do. And we repeat that after that, because at 52 degrees, that's where you start destroying vegetable form of bacteria. And under 52, you just develop them. So, of course, if you cook something, a fish, in a bag and you serve it right away, okay, it's not going to be dangerous. But if you cook it at 45 and you keep it in the fridge, then yes, it's going to be, you might start to have some trouble. And yes, maybe for a year, 6 months, 2 years, you might not have a problem. And then one day, the fish is going to come not that clean, and you're going to develop even more, and that's where you're going to have problem. And we saw some, I'm not going to cite any name, but some really top name in the world cooking at low temperature, and they had problems.
Sushi chaud. So chaud is hot in French, hot sushi, not cooked all the way through. Not a good idea.
That's what Bruno called the people who cook at 40 or 45. It's a warm sushi. Is not cooked. We have to think that when the prehistoric time, people used to live at 20, 30 years old, and they used to die either eaten by a lion or by food poisoning or some other thing. And there is a reason why we start cooking, and the reason was to make our food safe. Of course, it make the food better, but one of the original was to make it food safe, and people will not get sick from the food. And even if you had bacteria, because they didn't have any refrigeration and people keep that in the cellar or whatever, it was to make. So when we started, it was mainly thing was a higher temperature, more well done and something, because they want to destroy most of the bacteria. And
breaking up there. Mike says, no chicken sashimi for him. That would definitely not be.
It was high temperature. A lot of people were cooking everything over 80 degrees. And then
you're breaking up some there, Gerard. Looks like you're freezing on us. AJ, what are you currently working on that's coming down the road for either you or Crea?
Well, first, of course, we're excited to get as many people involved with International Sous Vide Day as we can. And we did film, in addition to the Portrait of the Master, which is Bruno's video, where he goes into the history and then also the future of what he sees for sous vide, we did a 30-minute video on Crea with all of our team. Some of it's over Zoom, but kind of get to know Crea a little bit more between the US and France. And we also have an in-house course coming up, perfectly safe. We're social distancing, keeping the enrollment to a minimum. There's a couple of spots left. It's going to be February 1st through 3rd. You can check it out on our website, lacrea.com, or email us at contactus@lacrea.com. But it'll be our first in-person training since, last year. We've postponed quite a few times. And then we've seen an increase in our online training as well. So if you go to the website, you can check out our online courses, which you can take in, the comfort of your own home at your pace. And again, maybe you don't get to taste everything, but you get the basics of the in-person training. But Jason, I think you can attest it's just not the same thing. Like actually having your hands on the food and hearing all the scientific lecture is really valuable.
I love trying all the different time and temperatures and the different quantities and types of food that you're making to really kind of highlight the differences in sous vide and how it affects the protein. And for me, it was great being in basically what's a professional kitchen, doing, learning about probing and the thermal curves and just all the really cool, interesting things that go into really fully understanding what sous vide cooking is. And then you eat just all the amazing food. I still can't get over the meat day was just
meat day is the killer for sure.
10 strip steaks and the 8 duck breasts and everything else is just gorging. It was great.
Yeah, it's important. I remember when I took the course the first time in New York in 2013. And I had been cooking sous vide at the restaurants for quite a while. And I remember walking out of the course like, oh my gosh, we need to rethink a lot of what we're doing. That idea of cryovacking raw meat will help the shelf life, or I actually have to change the oil in the chamber machine. I don't know if I've ever seen anybody do that. Like all of those things, just the whole fundamentals that you need, why you're cooking at the temperatures that you are, why chilling is very important. Like Gerard was mentioning before about seafood in particular. All of those things really help to shine a light on really understanding the basics, and then you can build your own recipes.
And it's fun with sous vide because there is a lot of, you can get a lot of the benefits from it by just doing something simple. But then when you get into these more advanced techniques, you don't always see the benefits until you cook. Like, okay, we're going to do a high, we're going to do a high-low, we're going to do a low-low, and eat them all right next to each other at the exact same time. So you can really compare them to each other. And it was really cool seeing, the different textures of salmon. And you're like, well, yeah, low-low was kind of mushy and not that great. And the high-low had some good texture to the outside, had good bite to it, and tasted like a much better cooked piece of fish, even though they were both cooked, through to the same temperature. The other one just had that little ring kind of higher temperature salmon that gives it that bite and that good mouthfeel for, as Gerard was saying, for us Americans that tend to like, a little more feel on the outside.
Yeah, everyone.
I'm become American too. I like my fish with a heavy searing. When I go to France, I'm like, that's not what I want. I spend now more of my time in America than I was in France. I came to America when I was 22 years old, and but my palate, my culture changed, and it's every culture, everything, the way being raised, you eat differently, and with sous vide is the same thing. There is no, okay, the French are better at it, or the American are better, or the Australian are better. It's everybody has their own style, everything, and everybody's looking for a different goal of what the final product's supposed to be.
It really unlocks, though, like depending on your palate and the flavors and the culture that you grow up in and what you expect, you can take any of those dishes from across the globe, and when you apply sous vide, you're finding out what the precise temperatures are that you need, and then it's replicable really easily after that.
Darren had a good question here. He said, can you confirm that it takes less time to reheat meat than it does to cook it via sous vide? So if you have a tender cut, obviously it takes less time to reheat short ribs compared to cooking it for, 2 days to tenderize them. But if you have a, say like a strip steak or something that's a tender piece of meat, does it take the same amount of time to reheat it if you've already cooked and chilled it, or does it take less time?
Less time. I mean, of course, it all depends on the size of the piece of meat that you have. But the cooking for lean meats, say we've got like a 1-inch strip steak, when we reheat, we do it by temperature as well, actually. Typically we'll keep a probe in one of the pouches, but yes, it is certainly less. You can do it in different ways. If you pre-sear meat, not only is it better for flavor, but also when you go to sear it in a pan to pick up, it actually has already gotten a little bit of that browning on the outside and then also that firmer texture. So the re-searing crispiness comes back a little bit easier and faster as well. So we've noticed that too.
I would like to add something with our customer. I will say 90% of them read outside of the bag, only for really thick product where you need to do it an internal temperature. So you put in a water bath, then you take it out, you put in a grill, you put in a fryer, you put a lot of different way. But if you have a smaller thickness of a product and you really want to bring enough caramelization or Maillard reaction, if you reheat sous vide, then you put in a pan, you're going to overcook it. For me, a salmon cooked sous vide, I can cook it perfectly. I take it out of the bag, I put something on it or not, put it under the broiler 3 minutes. It become really nice, crispy, and the flake just go one by one. For me, the best way to reheat a salmon is outside of the bag, under the broiler. You'll be very surprised, but a short rib or a top blade, and you put that for a minute in microwave compared to putting it in the oven. Of course, the water bath will be the best, but in microwave, we heat better than if you put it in the oven.
Really good example of that is the Taffer's menu. We dialed in all of the settings on the equipment that we have in the kitchen, and the longest pickup time on anything is a little over 4 minutes. And just take a wild guess, Jason, which menu item that is.
Well, that takes 4 minutes. Something thick, I would assume. I have like duck breast because you have to render fat.
You'd think, but actually it's the French fries. All of the product on the menu, because it's been intended and really well planned out in the kitchen, is under a 4 minute pickup time, meaning like not, ticket time, but just, to fire it, if you will. So
that's awesome.
So with all the tools that you have at home or you have at the kitchen, you can bring much more complexity, mouthfeel, and so forth. And that it was the biggest complaint when I started 32 years ago. It was like, and first we didn't have the technique that we have today. We know it's almost, I compare it like a chef coming out of culinary school and a chef 30 years later. And that's what happened with us, Cuisine Solution and Crea. What we did 30 years ago and what the way we cook today is completely different. We used to cook only low, but it's not only on cooking, it's also on reheating. If you look 20 years ago, we were still reheating everything in a bag. And now, I don't know if you remember from when you came to visit us on something, and I'll say 80, 90% are reheated outside of a bag because we want those caramelization. We want this level of flavor we want to add up, level of consistency that we want to add up to the whatever we do. If it's a vegetable, if it's a protein, it's something. It brings so much more complexity when you bring so many different flavor, caramelization, texture, and so forth.
Yeah, I feel like a lot in the class too is even like reheat it to like 30 Celsius or 40 Celsius and then take it out of the bag and then finish searing it to bring it up to 50 or 60, whatever the final serving temperature was, that you would combine the two, which was definitely something that I hadn't thought of, like consciously thought of at home. I've done it accidentally, like when I have people over for a barbecue, I'll cook all the chicken breast ahead of time and then I'll like throw it on the grill because that way I don't worry about serving undercooked poultry and stuff. But it's a great way to reheat, like you're saying, and still get a lot of the benefits of the juiciness and the perfectly cooked, but you don't have to stress that it's going to be undercooked or anything. Yeah,
the whole trick is not to get above the temperature that you originally cooked it to. That's the key, however you do it. Because then all the wonderful work that you put into it with the precise temperatures is going to be different.
You yelled at me enough to make sure that I still had the probe in when I was searing on the flat top. I learned that lesson. I didn't want to piss off AJ.
It's a tough crowd over there. The red card if you do the wrong thing and stuff like that.
Yeah, a lot of
yelling. Usually when the chef come, I tell them, I say, when was the last time you get yelled at? And it's like, I don't know, 30 years ago. I said, well, next 3 days you're going to be yelled at. Just don't take it personally.
If anyone out there is listening, like AJ said, there's a few more spots for the class coming up in February. It was an amazing time. I learned a lot. I was with a lot of people in there that are professional chefs that run entire operations, and they learned a lot. So it's for people that are really interested in doubling down on their sous vide knowledge and getting out there. And then don't forget to sign up for International Sous Vide Day coming up on the 26th. You can do that at internationalsousvide.com. And like Gerard said, all the videos are going to be online afterwards. So even if you're busy on the 26th, still sign up so you can be a part of their giveaways. You can get access to the videos later and make sure you just continue expanding your sous vide knowledge, especially for International Sous Vide Day. They're going to have a lot of international chefs, a lot of international demos. It should be a great time. AJ and Gerard, thank you so much for coming on. I always learn so much from talking with either one of you, and it's a great time having both of you on.
Well, thank you, and I hope on International Sous Vide Day, we are working on something with the International Sous Vide Association, and yes. Jason will talk about it later on, and hopefully you can all join us from all over the world.
Yep, we're going to be doing a international sous vide panel, which should be good. We have Australia, the Netherlands, Canada, America, with cuisines focused also in Asia and South America. We're going to be doing a panel discussion about sous vide around the world, and going to be showing it at International Sous Vide Day. And it should be a fun podcast episode with people will be joining us from all around the world. So it should be a really good time. It was Gerard's idea and looking forward to help execute it.
Yeah, everybody will contribute. It'll be a big, fun, worldwide celebration.
Yep. Should be a great time and a great way to help kick off International Sous Vide Day. So I'll miss seeing the both of you in person this year, but I will see videos of you online, and I'm sure sometime in the coming year we'll be able to get together again, and I look forward to that.
We hope so too, for sure.
Thanks again for coming on, and thanks to everyone in the comments and who are listening to this right now. Remember, you can join us live normally every Thursday when we record these episodes. You can ask the guests questions, talk to the other cooks in the comments, and even see our smiling faces. So join us Thursdays at afmeasy.com/show. And this has been Exploring Sous Vide. We're all about helping you get the most out of your sous vide machine while talking to some of the biggest names in the industry. Till next time, I'm Jason Logston. See y'all next Thursday.